Hi, I'm Karis.
And I'm Caitlin.
Today we're talking about purity culture.
And that's what happens when church hits the fan.
Let's Marvin Gaye, get it on. That's a good one, right?
I was going to sing something. I think I was just going to do Hawaii Five-0. That's what we did last week.
Better.
Yours is better. I remember listening to that song, Let's Marvin Gaye Get It On? And I was like, all right. I didn't know what they were talking about. And then he said, I'm like a dog without a bone. And I was like, all right. This is cool.
Oh, last week, Caitlin was talking about Charlie Sheen, like sacrificing his soul to Satan to be famous. And the whole time I thought she was talking about Charlie Puth. It's like, no!
You said, wait, when did that happen?
Wait, I would not, if I read that somewhere, if there was actual proof, I would deny. It was like, not my Charlie.
Just keep scrolling.
And it's like, they mean Charlie Sheen. They don't mean Charlie Puth.
Dude, I was defending him too. People were like, oh, Karis defending pedophiles.
Dude, I know. I thought I was like, dude, well, she loves Charlie Sheen.
No.
She loves 2.5 Men.
All right. Well, hey, guys. Welcome to episode 10 of our podcast.
Forgot we were recording.
Today we have a very special guest. She's kind of like a celebrity on our podcast. The only person we've mentioned by name.
Multiple times.
Yes. You introduce her.
Oh, yeah. It's our best friend, sister, cousin by distance, Hannah Taylor.
Hello.
Hi, Hannah. Welcome. One day this podcast is gonna be so successful that we'll fly you out for the weekend just to be on the podcast.
That would be nice.
Yes.
That would be nice.
Maybe by that time we're like actually video recording our faces.
Yes. I'm glad you remembered we were cousins.
Yeah. You're still on my phone as sister cousin.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah. But there's a peach emoji before and after your name.
Yep, that's how yours is too.
We grew so our dad and Hannah's dad are like best friends. Her dad introduced our dad to our mom. So it goes back a ways. And then we were best friends. Caitlin and Hannah were really best friends. And then like a couple years ago, we found out that we're literally related.
Yeah. We were at our Karis and I's family cemetery, and
for some reason.
because our grandfather
Oh, I thought it was a family reunion.
No, I mean we did go to family reunions a lot there. But it was Papa's memorial service.
Oh.
And your mom dropped you off, and she was like, that's where my so-and-so lives, my like great grandpa. And Momo was talking to her, and she was like, that's your grandpa? That's my uncle.
Wait, so how, like, that just speaks to how close we were, the fact that we were at our grandpa's funeral and your mom just dropped you off. And you're like, is this a family reunion? Because I'm just here.
Dude, Hannah went with us everywhere. And like whenever we did like youth functions, our family would support Hannah. Like our cousins and stuff would support Hannah.
Yeah.
What a time.
Yeah. They still keep up. They always ask you like, oh, how's Hannah?
Yeah.
Because I'm special.
Like, our grandma, she just sees you as her granddaughter, too. Our family, like, our aunts and uncles are like, they keep up with you on Facebook, right?
I am y'all's children, yes.
Yes.
Our children.
Not y'all's children, but your parents' children. I am their children. Their child.
For sure.
Hannah's an honorary PK. Her parents were never actually, like, pastors at the church, but she experienced everything that we experienced.
Dana was the children's pastor before Dad.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if she was like quote unquote children's pastor, but she was over the children's program at the church.
Yeah, it was like very like children's pastor said loosely.
Yeah.
So that was your birthright.
It was my birthright. I just didn't live it out until I became an honorary one.
Dude, I think we were just going through crap. We were like, you know who we should drag through the mud with us? Hannah.
Yeah, exactly.
But we had good times. I mean, we had bad times too, but we had good times.
Let's talk about some bad times.
No. Okay.
Okay, I have a lot, so.
Dropping names right here. I'm just kidding.
So today we're talking about purity culture, and I think all three of us are pretty passionate about it, but we're gonna try to be nice.
I hate it. Don't be
Purity?
pure. Don't be pure. I'm just kidding. I'm against it. Never mind. I was gonna say it's dirty culture.
We're promoting impurity culture.
Prostitution, love it. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Right. You're just kidding.
Oh my gosh. Either way, women are being oppressed, right? Either way.
If only they could see our faces.
So we were talking about when we were all in youth group. You guys, how old were you guys?
Do you want me to say our age now?
No. How old were you guys when we did the whole purity ring thing?
Oh, give me a year. What year was it?
I don't know.
I remember.
Remember.
I remember we were at Comino. Okay, this is why I specifically remember. Because the Wednesday night after we got back, I took a shower in Momo's bathroom in Comino. And I was thinking of situations where I would get myself in a fight and I could take my ring off of my left hand and put it on my right and just deck somebody. And I was in the bathroom at Momo and Paul Paul's house.
So doesn't it help?
So, no, it narrows it down to probably 2014 through. It's got to be 2014.
So
I
how
feel like
old
I
were
was
you?
like 13.
13?
Yeah, she would have been 12 and I would have been 13.
I can't believe I was 12.
So this is your first year in youth.
Yes, it was.
Okay. And there was this series that they were talking about love, and of course it was during February, and sex and all this stuff, and it was honestly terrible.
Dude,
It was a time.
I don't even remember them mentioning sex by the word
They
S.
jumped
Yeah,
around it.
Yeah, they talked around it. I was like, I was 13. I was like, just say it. Say it with your chest, man. Say it. If you can't say it, you shouldn't be lecturing us about it.
Yeah.
I don't even know if the youth pastor was married at that point.
Yeah, he was, I think.
Yeah, I think they were.
Okay, all right. So he was married. So he had done it. So that's fine. But they did this whole series, and then on the last week of the series, there was a purity ring ceremony. Hannah, what did you remember about that?
All I remember, because I've blocked a lot of this out, is we were in the youth hall. The lights were dim. Apparently, there were candles. And we were sitting in chairs with our parents. And then at some point, we had to go up and sign this, purity, contract, I guess. And then we signed it, and then we got our purity ring.
Sorry, just the description just got me rolling. Oh my gosh, so this is your first year in youth, and you tell your parents, hey guys, I need you to come with me to come sign this contract, and then I'm promising I'm not gonna have sex.
And and I remember we took a picture with the contract and my ring after.
So what did your parents think about that when you told them what was going on?
I don't know. I think they were here for it.
Okay.
I don't know. I feel like I don't remember, but knowing my mom, she probably was like, okay, cool. And then when we got there, she was probably like, this is weird. But she did it anyways.
Oh my gosh. They're probably like, we've been trying to figure out a way to keep our 12-year-old from having sex. Finally.
Finally, an answer. Thank you, Lord, for intervening.
Now that I think about it, I think she was kind of like, why are you doing this now? Because I was 12.
I mean, there's a difference.
If Caitlin's doing it, so I'm doing it.
Dude, I just think I was doing it because I was like, yeah, dude, I'm here for it. I want to ring.
Yeah.
I don't really think I really cared much about the purity stuff. Not like I was just like, I'm going to do my own thing. But it was just like, I already know I'm not going to do that. So I was just like, yeah, might as well get a ring out of it that I'm not buying.
I was all about it. I was so into it. I couldn't wait to wear that purity ring. I couldn't wait.
I couldn't wait to
I
get
mean,
in a
I-
fight with that purity ring. I was like, I'm gonna mess somebody up with
No,
this thing.
Caitlin.
I wore it every day.
Dude, I still have your old purity ring that you gave me. It's on my makeup brush. It's that pink makeup brush you gave me a long time ago. And you gave me an old purity ring, and I still have it up there. It's on the makeup brush.
What do you mean, Hannah? You're not wearing your purity ring anymore?
Absolutely not. I don't
Yeah.
remember that. Is it the one that doesn't have the little fake diamond in it, or like
No,
actually give you?
it's like a little like fake diamond in it.
Oh,
Cause you
I
also,
think I remember that.
yeah. I still have. I was looking at it last night. I was doing makeup, and I was like, "Ugh, this is Hannah's old purity ring."
You said perfect timing.
Yeah. I can't get it off, so I'll never throw that brush away.
I feel like there was a context maybe at one point where the purity ring thing made sense. But then like some person somewhere just took that idea and put it on steroids and it is what it is today.
Yeah.
And it's just ridiculous. I think like man, I felt bad because I posted something about I had a selfie of 15-year-old me wearing my purity ring and I posted it, something said something about it, and someone messaged me and they're like, I have a purity ring, and I was like, oh.
Cool.
So does this mean we date now? Dude, the Jonas Brothers had purity rings.
Oh my gosh. You
Did
didn't
they really?
you
Yeah,
don't
they
remember
did.
that? It
No,
was
I
a
did
big
not
thing.
know that.
There's like a whole thing on it. You could just look it up, like Jonas Brothers purity rings, and it shows it.
It
'Cause
was a big deal.
they also grew up the same denomination as us.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
interesting.
I don't think they stayed quite as pure as they promised, but
Well, there was the joke. I don't know if y'all remember the Jonas Brothers roast a couple years ago, where Joe Jonas's ex-wife was like, "You guys had on purity rings, and you were doing. I'm not gonna say what she said, but they were doing questionable things with their fingers."
I did not hear
cut that out.
that.
I don't know how else to say that, but
Yeah.
Cut that out.
it is definitely like, and I've seen things where like Disney was like, make them wear purity rings, make them.
Dude, Disney?
Interesting.
Yeah, so I think I think there's a
Did-
context. I think there's a context where a purity ring might be helpful. Like, y'all remember that Christian movie Courageous, where the dad like takes the daughter out to dinner and like buys her, and then he's like, "This is a purity ring, and I want you to wear it." I think that could be like kind of sweet, but also it's like,
I agree.
we can do
It's
better.
kind of just weird. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, like giving a 12-year-old a wedding ring. You know what I mean?
Dude,
I mean,
he
yeah.
like reverse proposed to his daughter, you know? It's like, I want you to
Wear
stay
this until
single
you get
forever.
married.
What'd you say, Hannah?
Wear this until you get married. And that's what I thought I was supposed to do.
I legit thought this is gonna stay on my finger until somebody slips an engagement ring on.
Yep.
And you guys just know that the purity ring was not a woman's idea.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely not. You imagine like a young woman, unmarried, you're like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna wear a ring so that men think I'm married and don't want to have sex with me.
I mean, that's essentially like kind of what it is. I feel like.
I know. That's what I'm
So-
saying. It's crazy. They just gave that to a 12-year-old.
All right,
Yeah.
let's think about this. So, a woman who is not 12, older, and you know, a man looks at her and he sees a ring on her finger. You think that man's just gonna go up to her and be like, "So what's that ring? Purity ring or engagement ring?" You hear me?
Oh, yeah.
I was like, "You're setting us up for failure." All right.
Yeah. What if that was my future husband and now he thinks
Yeah.
I'm married?
How are we ever supposed to get laid if we have a ring on our finger, huh? I'm just kidding.
Back to impurity culture.
Dirty culture.
That's what you should have asked the youth pastors. Like, dude, you're killing our game. Did the boys have to wear purity rings too? Did the boys get purity rings?
I think so.
I'm going to be honest. I don't remember them getting one, but I think they did.
Okay.
I remember one of our friends took his off because he was like, "Yeah, it bothered me." I was like, like the thought of it or just the ring? He was like, the ring. He was like, in my heart, I've got a purity ring on, but not on my finger. I was like, all right, very
Right.
cool.
Yeah, it's just crazy. The whole idea of having a ceremony for that is just crazy. But I think that it was like there's so much more pressure on women to do that, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, I remember during that the analogy was used where he was like, imagine you have a pure glass of water, like it's so crystal clear and refreshing, and then someone comes and dips a spoon in it and it gets all nasty, and then someone else dips a spoon in it and the water gets nastier, and by the end it's like brown water, and he's like, would you want to drink this water? And he's like, that's what it's like when you have sex. You're letting other people dip their spoon in your water. It's like, first of all,
Terrible analogy. Terrible.
why are you letting anybody with a dirty spoon dip in your water? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Second of all,
I'm shocked you remember that.
dude, I
That's
remember it so clearly. And I was
that's
like,
probably why I blocked it out right there. That very comment. It's probably why my brain was like, you don't need to remember that, Hannah.
dude, the Lord had his hand on you, Hannah.
Dude, I don't think, like, I honestly, hearing, like, y'all's stories, I honestly don't think my brain was registering what was going on, because I think I was just in my own world, because
Yeah.
we're just like, yeah, all right, cool. I'm probably thinking, I'm like, if an intruder comes in here right now, how am I going to get away?
I was
That's
also
exactly what we're thinking about.
probably. I also was a little bit older, so when they said stuff about sex, I probably actually caught on to it.
Yeah.
Dude, I was probably just upset with, like, somebody stuck their dirty spoon in my water. I'd be pissed off, you know? It was like,
Well, that's one thing is like I was 12 and for them to not be actually like talking about sex and just jumping around the bush is like me as a 12-year-old, I'm not going to get that. So what am I really learning?
yeah.
And
You know?
it's also dangerous, and that's what one of the questions we were going to ask or just discuss was like the church has not talked about sex very well, and it's created this really dangerous thing where first of all, people don't know how to have sex safely.
Mm-hmm.
And second of all, like it's just this really, really, really shameful and guilty thing. And like you told me yesterday, Hannah, like even people who are married, like they feel guilty having sex and they're married.
Yeah, I
You
was
know?
listening to this podcast. I can't remember what it was. And she had like just left her church and decided to join, I think it was a non denominational church or something. And she had just got married and she had sex with her husband on their wedding night. And they didn't have sex again for 7 months because she felt so much guilt because it's not really talked about, or when it is talked about, it's like, that's bad. You don't do that before marriage. It's just like not talked about in a good light. Like the church doesn't really highlight how beautiful it's supposed to be and
Right.
how God wanted it to be. And so she said afterwards, she went and cried in her shower, and she did that every night
Oh my
because of the
gosh.
just sheer guilt that she felt. But then
Wow.
eventually, like going to the new church and like talking to people, it like helped her, and she like worked through her feelings. But it's just insane to me that people would feel that much guilt just because of the way that they grew up hearing about it.
Man.
Yeah. Just like the idea that sex itself is wrong. I remember when we came
Yeah.
to our church, one of the pastors, we have a pastor at our church who loves to talk about sex, reads Song of Solomon all the time. Bless her. I'm actually kind of a fan, but she was saying how like when she was raising her daughter, how like teaching her not that desires are bad, but what to do with them. And that was
Yes.
the first time I was like, oh, like having sexual desires is not sinful. Like I'm not a terrible person, but like what do I do with if I'm not married? What do I do with that? You
Right.
know? I still don't have the answer for that question
Go for a
because I
run.
quickly got married. But that was like the first time I was like, oh. And if you think about it, like Adam and Eve had sexual desire before sin even ever entered into the world
Right.
because it was such a godly thing. Like you said, it was beautiful. So yeah, I think there's been so much shame on it that like Christians just they don't know how to have sex. You know all the awkward like wedding night stories. Like these men need some help. And then
Yeah.
like they don't know how to do it safely. So if you do
Mhm.
have sex before marriage, you end up pregnant or like
STD.
with some dirty spoons.
Yeah.
Or
Dude, will you
Lots of dirty
stop
spoons.
saying dirty spoons? I don't like that analogy.
I didn't make it up, all right? I'm just saying what I've been taught.
Dude, something about purity culture that could be done differently was I think that they just like somebody like dirtied this pure water, you know, and who wants to drink dirty water? I mean, it's
Yeah.
like it was more of just like don't dirty yourself because who would want you afterwards, you
Oh, I
know?
hate
You want to
that.
save like your like the pure crisp water for your spouse. And I'm like, I understand the meaning, but whenever you're young and you think like if I slip up once, who's going to want me after that, you know?
Yeah.
That's not cool. And I'm for sure that's not what God was trying to say whenever he was saying like only have sex with your husband or wife. Like I don't think he was saying like you're going to be damaged goods if you have sex before you're married, you know? And that's kind of like the message it conveyed. Do you
I
feel that way?
agree. Yeah, I agree 100%. I also had that same takeaway of like, okay, if I mess up once, which would be normal for me to do as a human, I'm allowed to mess up. But if I mess up once in this area, I am untouchable. No one wants me. I have leprosy.
Yeah. Might as well just cut my arms and legs off because
Honestly.
Yeah, I hate that so much because Jesus doesn't care about like the physical aspects of it. He's after. We said the same thing with alcohol.
yeah.
Like Jesus doesn't actually care that you're drinking alcohol. He cares that you want to get drunk.
Mhm.
Like Jesus
Yes.
doesn't actually care that you physically had sex. He cares that you feel so empty that you feel like you have to do that, you know?
Mhm.
Or that like you just want to hide or you don't feel loved enough with him, you know? Stuff like that. I hate that. And I hate that again, that's mostly said to women
Mhm.
Yes.
or girls in a church. I hate that. If someone ever said that now, I would either leave or just get aggressive real fast. Probably leave, but I'd want to get aggressive.
Caitlin would get aggressive.
Yeah, probably.
I feel like if that ever happened with Caitlin and Hannah in the same room, earrings would come off.
It would be
Dude.
bad.
I no rings would be put on my right hand. It was like I have been waiting for this moment.
Can't you grab your purity
Dude.
ring out your back pocket? This is the only thing
Yeah.
this is good for.
I'm like, Karis, hand me your wedding ring right now.
I don't know if it would. I don't know if it would last. That was one thing. Like, I think I told you this, Hannah, that like I just recently realized how sexist the church that we were in was.
Yeah.
And that's a, if you're listening, like I don't mean anything ill by that. But honestly, truly, like if there was any sexual immorality, I remember multiple times where there were minor girls involved with older boys, and there was sexual stuff involved. And when it came out, the girls always got in trouble. And
Yep.
the men, like, probably, they just left the church. Like, they weren't held accountable.
Oh yeah.
Like, multiple times. That's just crazy. And I remember, like, actually thinking, like, oh, because I'm not a person who's be like, everything's sexist. Or even, like, I don't like throwing accusations like that around, but I remember when I actually like realized like, oh, like there was no like all of the accountability for sexual stuff fell on the women.
Yeah, like if like a couple like people had sex, it was like the woman seduced him into it, and like it's her fault. I'm just one of the fruits of the spirit is self-control. And if, like both of us should like not us, but like both of the parties should be practicing that. And it's not just one person's like it takes two to tango, buddy. But it's like it's easier to I don't know, blame the woman, I guess. I don't know. I really don't know where that psyche is coming from, but I could say like it's easier. It's just like, oh, she seduced him. So it's not really his fault, it's hers.
Or she allowed the temptation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hannah, when would you say that you like realized that, or was it just kind of slow, or did you know that all along?
I think I realized that when I was like, well, how old was I when y'all moved?
It was 5 years ago.
You were 17, 16, 17.
I think it was about then because when y'all were there and I was in youth, I like didn't know how to like stick up for myself or like really do any of that until Caitlin literally taught me. Like just being her friend taught me, and then y'all left, right? So then I was like, wow, it's really time for me to put my skills to the test. But I think after that is when I realized, because I started like seeing things differently than I would before. Like I would see something and ignore it before, but then I had more time to like actually like think about what I was actually witnessing and hearing and form my like own opinions. Not that y'all made me have opinions, but like just actually like sit in my own thoughts and be like, wait a minute.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I realized then, and even like down to the little things, I think one of the first things I remember is at like baseline sexist, right? The lowest level you can get, but it's very common in the church is like I wasn't allowed to carry something next to the youth pastor because one, I was a woman and I wasn't supposed to be carrying something that was heavy, and two, because how would it make him look?
Mm.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing is like, even if, you know, that person wasn't trying to be sexist because the church was sexist, it's like they were so worried about their, like how people viewed them
Mm.
that it
Right.
like
Yeah.
took them over too. So it was, I think that's when I realized, because I was like, what do you mean I can't carry this 10-pound fire pit that has no wood in it? What do you mean? Because
Yep.
I'm a girl?
Right.
So,
Yeah, that was a thing. And, you know, when we were growing up, like we're pastors' kids, so we're used to the setup and the takedown of everything, right? And I remember one time I was carrying an amp, and the amps are like 40 pounds, right? Or it was a speaker, and one of the workers in children's church was like, let him carry it. And I'm like, I honestly knew, I was like, this kid cannot carry it. Just let me do it. And she got her whistle and she blew it at me, and she was like, stop and let him do it. And I was like, what is this woman's problem? And then she like came up to me later, and I don't hate this person, love him with all my heart, but she was like, just let him do it, like let him learn to be a gentleman. And I was just like, okay.
I
Well,
mean, I get it. I think it, to some extent, I was fine with a guy taking something from me, but also it had to be in the right way. Like
Mm-hmm.
I would want a guy to take something from me because he wanted to help me, not because I couldn't do it or
Mm-hmm.
because I was a girl,
mm-hmm.
but rather just like, let me take that from you because I'm nice, not
Mm-hmm.
because you can't do it. But
Yeah, or because I want to look stronger than you. You're making me look
yeah,
weak. I remember like talking about like the image thing when we moved away. I was so petrified to talk to men, especially in the church. Even like when I was married and stuff, because there was always, as like a kid, like I was like you know like 12, 13, 14, 15, like even at that young, I could not you could not be in a proximity with a man alone because rumors could be said that you guys were doing something. And I'm like, now I'm like, first of all, if that happened, that would literally be illegal on his
yep.
part. Second of all, why were you guys thinking of me in that way? And then, like, here, I was so uncomfortable talking to men. Like, I remember one of the first, we led a life group with another married couple, and they were awesome. So awesome. I think we're actually, we have him on the list to be a guest on this podcast, too. And, like,
I don't know who you're talking about.
Jacob Barnett.
Oh yeah, they're so cool.
Yeah, they're so cool. And, like, I remember, like, they would, like, give us hugs and stuff, and we were leaving their house one time, and Jacob Barnett gave me a full-on hug and not a side hug. It made me so uncomfortable because I was just brought up with like this image of like, or like the first time that a man like texted me directly, not even about it, just like texted me
Yep.
like, hey, we're having this event, do you think you could da 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 da. It made me uncomfortable because I was like, what are they gonna say if like we're just texting, there's not a third person in the group chat.
Mm.
Or like having a like direct conversation with a man and no one else is a part of the conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's something I also experienced. Like it wasn't just like Jake. Like I don't know, we're just throwing his name around. Love you to death,
No,
Jacob Arnett.
I say his name
but-
because he was so friendly and welcoming. It made me uncomfortable.
I mean, that's the thing. It was like, it was way outside of our paradigm just to even hug a man, you know? But it was just like him, and there's another guy at the church who hugs me all the time, and I'm still like kind of like taken aback because I'm just like, I don't know if I should be doing this, you know? But he's the one initiating it, and he's going out and he's welcoming me because it's like we're friends and we're going to embrace each other because that's what friends do, right? But on my end, I'm like, I don't want to seem like I'm trying to steal somebody's husband by receiving this
Yeah.
hug. And that's like embedded in my brain. Like, I don't want to seem like I'm the one who is like trying to get him because I'm not. I'm honestly not, but I'm just afraid that that's going to happen.
I think for me, it was like so drilled into my head, that whole boy girl thing, that it didn't just affect me still in the church, but it affected me in my personal life.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it still does affect me. And I remember when me and my boyfriend started dating, we went like on a late night drive or something and got Whataburger. Really just the most normal thing
Mm-hmm.
that you could do. And I remember having a conversation with him about how I was feeling weird because in the church, like, you and a man being alone was like, ooh, spicy, like weird, like don't do that. And obviously, I mean, like me and Nicholas would go to Sonic alone. Like we would hang out when he would come home from college, but I don't know, it was something about the fact that I liked this guy and we were alone going to Whataburger that was so normal, but in my brain I'm like, I feel anxious because I'm doing something wrong, but I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like drilled into my brain.
Yeah.
Right. Like the fact that there's just so much shame linked with just being alone. Because I remember there was a time when we were all younger, and I'm not going to say who it was, but there was a leader that if they had found out that you had gone to Whataburger with your boyfriend late at night, you would have gotten a 2-hour lecture. And that's not even an exaggeration. Like if
I've been
you
I've been there. I got one of those.
yeah, and you
lectures.
probably
Hannah actually got multiple of those.
you probably were just being like Hannah, like you, like there was no way you were trying to sleep with the guy, and you got a lecture
Absolutely
anyway.
not.
Dude, I actually remember one time Hannah got talked to because she was wearing a darker shade of lipstick. You remember that?
Yes, I also got talked to one time because I decided to wear a choker on my birthday, and I was on the worship team, so I got a talking to that.
And
How
then
messed up? How old were you? Tell me how old you were.
I think I was older at that point. I think I was like 15.
older,
Okay, but
15 years old.
Older than 12.
They literally were like, this 15-year-old is coming to church trying to imply sexual stuff by wearing that necklace. How ridiculous is that?
That was the same day, the lipstick and the choker. That
Mhm.
happened the same day.
And
'Cause it
I
was my
remember
birthday.
there was
I was trying to look cute.
there were the bralettes. Okay, super innocent, but the bralettes that had the straps on the front, and it was kind of like a higher neck. And if you wore like a V-neck, you could see the straps, but it was cute underneath it, right?
That was a
I mean,
trend too. That
It was
like
a trend, and it wasn't like we were trying to like be like seductive or whatever, but it was just like you would have thought like Hannah wore it once, and I remember she got chewed out. And I was just like, you would have thought this woman just showed up in a bra and underwear and just led worship.
Yep.
Like even if like let's say that there is someone who has an issue with it, like okay, you don't want me to wear stuff on stage. That's one thing. Handle it in a better way.
100%. That's
Yeah.
fine. If that person were to come up to me and say, "Hey, I don't feel comfortable with you wearing that up there," and like explain to me the why
Mm-hmm.
in a kind way, I would have been like, "Okay, I won't wear it again when I'm on stage."
Right.
You know, but it wasn't. I think that was that person's excuse.
Mm-hmm.
They were like easy out
Mm-hmm.
for like telling me not to wear it because I think that person was just trying to have control over my life
Right.
and what I did. Because also, anytime I had a boyfriend, it was an issue.
Mm.
Anytime I hung out with a guy, it was an issue. I just think that person I don't know if they had good intentions, but I just think they were wanting to like control that aspect of my life in any way that they could, and I was not here for it.
Yeah. Well, it came out later that that person also had romantic intentions with someone way younger. And so sometimes I'm like, was that like, why was he thinking of young girls in that way? Why was he so jealous and protect? I don't know. Anyway, that's
Yeah.
assumptions. But I remember with a different person, one time we went on a youth trip. You guys were probably a lot younger, and you probably remember this. We went to Incredible Pizza, and it was the time of our lives. And
Was it that time that guy sang a song dedicated to you? You remember that, Hannah?
No.
He like came up afterwards and he sang a love song and he was like looking Karis dead in the eye. And he came up to you, me, and Elise afterwards because it was like that time that we were the trio and he was like, "Do you think I did good?" And we were like, "Dude, you went up there, you were on stage and you sang." And he was like, "But was it good?" And we were like, "You went up there." And he
I
was like,
wish
"Do
I
you?"
remember that.
And then like afterwards he went up to our dad and he was like, "Can I date your daughter?" And dad was like, "You know, dude, I'm gonna take this. I don't think she's ready for it. I don't think you're ready for it." Dad totally saved the day for Karis on that one. But he sang a love song dedicated to Karis. I wish I could remember the song.
I remember I tried to get as far away from that kid as possible. But yes, it was that Incredible Pizza. It was supposed to be a reward for a really hard week of work that we had been
Right.
doing at the church. And there was these two 12-year-olds, and like the whole week they had been like, we're girlfriend and boyfriend. No, we're not. Yes, we are. We're girlfriend and boyfriend. And they got caught on the bus holding hands. And it was this explosion. This man had been, our youth pastor had been to his limit, I guess, because that was the wire hanger in his closet. And
I remember
everyone, he just chewed us out. He yelled at us. Everyone had to sit in silence for an hour on the ride home because these two
that
kids were
jogged
holding
my.
hands. You remember it? What do you remember about
Yeah.
it?
I just that like I'm having some nostalgia. That like jogs my memory. I remember us going home from that trip and it was so tense and we all had to sit in like different seats or like we had to sit away from each other and we just could not talk and I remember being like, what did I do?
Yeah, we didn't do anything.
They were holding hands. It's not like they were like making a baby, you know, in the back of the people mover.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. Also, if they were like kissing, I could see that, you know?
Yeah.
Holding hands. Though.
And
Yeah.
but there were so many moments like that. I remember like boys are blue, girls are red, no purpling, you know,
Yep.
which I'm sure a lot of church kids have heard that. And like there were so many moments like that where I think in my brain it equated anything with the opposite sex as shameful and bad.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, let's just be honest, when anything is shameful, then you might as well just do everything in secret.
Mm.
Like if holding a hands with a boy in public is shameful, we might as well go make out in private, you know?
I feel like they thought that like holding hands was the gateway drug to sex.
Yeah. This
You
is
know?
this is the same church that wouldn't allow dancing at the church because that was the gateway.
Yeah,
to
if you
sex.
have a if you have a wedding at the church, you can't dance unless it's like a father-daughter, mother-son dance.
Wait, I actually didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's a rule
Yeah.
for the denomination.
But also like so we had like really two
Hannah's
really good
shook.
friends. They were both boys. Their dad was a Hispanic pastor. And they were just some of our closest friends. Like but at one point it felt like we couldn't even be their friends because they were boys and we were girls. And
Well,
it was
because
just
we got in trouble so much for like if we would walk with them
Dude.
alone or if we would text them, like we would get in trouble. So like, why would we feel good about trying to be friends with them if every time we did something we got in trouble?
Dude, and I get the underlying message. Like, you don't want teenagers to get used to being alone in a room. Like, okay.
Right.
Understandable. But, like, I don't know, dude. It's just the shame that it taught me that I can't be, like, friends with a guy, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm still kind of weird about guy friends. Like, I'm weird about it. And it's just, like, I have a lot of friends that are married and their husbands are there. And then, like, my friend leaves to go to the bathroom and it's just me and the husband just sitting there. I'm like, okay, this is
Immediate guilt.
yeah. I'm like, this is the point where I need to start recording, you know, just in case something
Yeah.
happens and they want to accuse me of something, you know?
Well,
And-
my boyfriend's dad texted me on, I think it was Christmas, just me, you know, no group chat because this is normal, right? He texted me and was like, "Thank you for my Christmas gift. Like, I hope you had a good Christmas."
Mm-hmm.
And I felt immediate guilt.
That's
And
so
I was like,
crazy.
"This is weird. Like, this is like, I don't know how I feel about this, but it is so normal." It was just that like previous everything that we were
Yeah.
taught essentially that made it feel guilty. But it was weird.
And that's
Like-
your boyfriend's dad. Like, there should be no like sexual tension there at all. And there's not
no.
any. But it's
No.
just like, that's such a weird thing that's ingrained in our head.
Like, I
It
do
was
want to.
that,
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say it was like that immediate thought of like, why am I not in the group chat with his mom? Like, that's immediately what I thought. But then I like came back down to earth and was like, wait a minute. I'm crazy.
It's crazy as a church kid growing up to see how normal people live their lives.
Oh yeah.
I do understand though, because like whenever you're a pastor and you're trying to counsel somebody, and you're a male pastor and you're trying to counsel a young female, I do understand that you want accountability just in case that young person is like, oh, they tried something and they tried to like just,
Right.
I understand that part of it. So I'm not trying to just like hate on like having accountability, but
the difference between hey, let's have a meeting together, but let's not close the door completely. There's wisdom in that. And then do you guys remember the difference between that and then like we had a boy hallway and a girl hallway. Like, we weren't allowed to use the same hallway. That was so ridiculous.
And you know why we had a girl hallway and a boy hallway? I think because me and Caitlin got in trouble for walking with boys, and so I think he designated those hallways girls and boys.
dude, I'm surprised he didn't put a shock collar on us and just like shocked us whenever we got near it, you know?
That's honestly a great like tactic.
I'm going to become a youth pastor just so I can use the shock collar method.
It's also, I think, when we were younger, I thought that people like on church trips going off and like doing something they weren't supposed to do was a whole lot more common because of how strict they made it. It did happen.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one time it happened, but I thought it was like high security, like so much more common. But then I was thinking back, like I was, I guess, dating someone at that time in my life, and I never once thought, hey, let's go sneak off. Never once. Like, that just wasn't normal for me.
Right. It's like they had you believing that like half the people in the world were conceived on a church trip.
Yes, they really, honestly, they did.
Dude, I remember when that happened because we were all staying at the church for like a missions thing, right? And we were all watching the movie 42 with Jackie Robinson, remember? And we all looked around and were like, oh crap, where are they? And I remember being pissed at them, not because they were like making out in a locked Sunday school room, but I was like, I'm going to have to get lectured at because they're out getting like making out. And I was just like,
you just ruined this for all of us.
And dude, I remember when I saw him, I was like, you freaking idiot. And he was like, what? And I was like, now I'm going to have to hear a lecture. I gave it to him. I was so pissed at him. I gave him a lecture. Not because he was making out. I was like, you dumb idiot. Now we all have to suffer.
I remember us specifically being like, why is it so quiet? And we realized that person wasn't there, and we were like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Man, those Sunday school rooms.
Why are we having such a peaceful time right now? This is odd.
Out of every 4 babies is conceived in a Sunday school room.
In the world.
By a 15-year-old.
Wow.
Yep, exactly.
So one of the questions we were going to ask you was, where is it? Okay. Did the purity culture, like the glorification of your virginity and like, this is the ultimate goal to not have sex until you're married. How did that affect your relationship with Jesus at all?
I want to say it didn't affect my relationship with Jesus, but more so it just like affected me personally. Like I don't think I ever thought that the way they were portraying it was the way that Jesus would have portrayed it. I think at my heart, I knew that. But I think it affected me personally in the sense of like when we were talking about the whole dirty spoon thing, like I thought I was going to be gross and dirty and no one wanted me, but I knew that Jesus would still want me, if that makes sense.
That's good. That's good that you still had that.
So it more affected your view of yourself.
Yes, 100%. I got a lot of my insecurities from that point in my life where that was being shoved down our throats.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say the same thing, but if anything, I would say that like it affected me to where like I felt like I wasn't good enough for Jesus. Like if I did one thing like wrong sexually, if I slipped up, crossed a line, whatever, that like I couldn't come to Jesus.
Yeah.
I remember one time I got caught doing something, not caught like physically, but the texts were found. And I wasn't allowed to be on the worship team anymore. And so that kind of like put the thought, both of your faces just so validating. That kind of gave me the impression that like if there's any sin in my life, Jesus cannot and doesn't want to use me. You know, like I'm no good.
Also, it gives off the impression that you can't worship with sin in your life.
Right.
I agree.
And we're just like, is that true? And it's not like I never got the impression that Jesus loves me because I'm a virgin. But I also like, how much would he love me if I wasn't? You know?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of my motivation to not have sex before I was married was, one, I never had a boyfriend, so there's that. And two was I was genuinely scared, like, how would I live with myself afterwards?
Yeah, because it's like the unknown for you.
Yeah, I was like,
And-
am I going to heaven? Like, I know I could ask for forgiveness and he would, like, forgive me and I could repent and then I could start a new slate. But then I was just like, but then I'll always have that, like, like I'll always, like, I'll be the dirty water,
I think I never thought about that when I was younger, or even now, I guess, just because I don't know, I never planned on doing it, so it just never crossed my mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that it had a lot more to do with the image of people than people's actual hearts. Like you were saying earlier, like how does this make people look? Like I probably wasn't allowed on the worship team after that because of the image of like, oh well, they just let anybody up there, you know.
Yeah.
What was funny was nobody else knew.
I didn't know.
Yeah,
I do remember you had to take a break from worship and I kept asking why. And nobody would tell me. Like, she just has to take a break. I'm like, why?
yeah, and
Why?
but the image is just like you have to be pure, you have to be perfect and stuff. But literally, the first person that Jesus used to spread the gospel was a whore. Literally, he's like, how many? Where's your husband? And she's like, oh, my husband. And he's like, you're right, you don't have a husband. You have 5 husbands. And then she's the first person that Jesus was like, I'm the living water. And she literally was the first evangelist of Jesus. Like she went and brought her whole town. And so like right off the bat, Jesus is trying to convey like, I don't care about what you look like. That's not what this is about. It's about what I look like, you know?
Right.
And I wish we would have been taught that. Like how validating would that have been to a younger us to just be like, Jesus doesn't care. He doesn't want you to focus on you anymore. He wants you to focus on him.
Well, this may be a hot take, but I feel like a lot of times the church didn't like tell stories like that or portray it that way because I feel like they were going to feel like if we tell them this, they're going to think it's okay to go and do it. And they're just going to go do it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Because everything was so based on works. It was based on what you did. Like that's what we were focused on is how you act, not how was your heart.
Something I have a problem with modern, I don't want to say church, but something we grew up with, and I still see it a lot today, just Christians like judging other Christians, is we focus so much on sin. Like that's what we see. When we see a person messing up, we see sin. We don't see the person behind it. And it was just like when Jesus looked at like the people, like when he looked at that woman at the well, he didn't see a whore. He saw a woman at the well. You know what I'm saying? Like he saw somebody he cared about, and he cared enough about her to let her be the first person to go spread the gospel. He didn't say like, oh, like look at me, I'm gonna redeem this woman because she's a whore and blah blah blah. He saw the woman behind it, and it wasn't like he saw the sin on her.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I have a big problem about with like Christians nowadays. Is like we focus so much on sin. Jesus didn't focus so much on sin. He focused on the people. He wanted to love people, you know?
And we won't even tell them how to handle sin. Like we won't talk about sex, but when you do have sex, it's bad.
Yeah.
It's like, and these
Right.
kids are like, I don't know anything. You guys won't teach me about this.
Mhm.
I'm having to learn it from social media or from my boyfriend or from
Yeah.
people at school. You guys won't talk to me about it. So this is where I'm getting all my information from. And
We'll talk all day about the consequences, like where that sin's going to take you, but we
Yeah.
won't
Yep.
tell you how to deal with it, like how to, like, if you're having these thoughts, how to, like, counteract, how to, like, get your mind off of that, you know? Also, don't beat yourself up if you have those thoughts, because guess what? We're human. We all face temptation. Also, guess what? Jesus faced temptation.
right.
Yep.
So what will you tell your children, do you think? What will be like, obviously you're not going to take the Caitlyn approach and be like, go have sex all you want. But what do you think you'll tell them that the Bible says about it and what Jesus wants for them with it and everything?
I honestly, I don't know. I feel like that's a hard one. I don't know.
I should have told you that question yesterday.
Do
That's
you
okay.
want to say what you're going to tell your sons and then let us give us a chance to think?
Yeah, I can do that since I'm already a parent. I guess I should have the first answer. So I think it's a little bit different because they are boys, and I have no idea what it's like to be a boy, especially a teenage boy. But I think that I do want to tell them, like, Jesus really is after your heart. The only reason he doesn't want you to have sex is because he doesn't want you to get hurt. Like, how many times have people had sex with someone that they weren't actually committed to, and then like their hearts are broken, and because they went that far, it makes it more heartbreaking, and it makes it harder, and it like tears you apart a little bit more because you went there with that person. So I think that that's what I'll tell them is like, it's not just like a don't have sex because you could look bad or it's a sin or you could get a girl pregnant or whatever. And then I'm going to tell them like, Jesus doesn't want you to do that because it's genuinely not good for you and he cares so much about you, you know? And hopefully they actually will be more prepared. And I mean, they're toddlers now, so I can't even begin to think to have this conversation with them. And hopefully my husband will and not me. But just like what to actually do when they are tempted and how to actually handle situations like that instead of just like, well, don't be tempted, because that's
Yeah.
impossible, you know? Yeah, that's how
I think
feel.
I think for me, obviously if it's a girl, there's like a whole different ball game, I feel.
Mhm.
And you have to talk about so many other different things, but not to not have my own original answer. But I do agree. I think it's good to talk about it in that way and highlight that, it's not just because it's a sin or it's bad, but because it hurts.
Mhm.
And I mean, I've heard so many people tell me stories about, they lost their virginity and now they cannot get over this person. Like they just have this like invisible tie to them, and they're like, I don't know what to do about it because they don't want anything to do with me, but I was intimate with them.
Right, yeah.
So I think it is important to like shed light on that. It's like, we're saying not to do this because it hurts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
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 Like there's an actual reason Jesus didn't want us to do it.
Right.
Not just like blah, 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 dirty spoon. What do you think, Caitlin?
I think what I'm going to tell my kids, I don't know, I don't know, it might vary if I have boys and girls, but I would definitely say the same, like the emotional connection that you give to that person, when you have sex, like you can't get that back. And especially if they're like a jerk and they just want to use you, that's not cool. So just be very careful about that. And also, I'm really hoping that I could like scare them with STDs. Like, you could,
Oh my gosh. And then
you
they can
could
go on a
become sterile.
podcast
Yeah.
20 years later and
It's
talk
like,
about how terrified they were.
my mom traumatized me.
Oh my gosh. I think that, what was I going to say? Oh, I think I'm definitely going to teach them that virginity is not the highest, most wonderful goal in the world, but actually being in a relationship with Jesus. Because you can lose your virginity and Jesus, you can still go to him.
Mm.
You know?
Right.
Like losing your physical virginity is not as big of a deal as actually like knowing him and glorifying him, you know?
I think that's what I had to learn when I got older. I mean, I think I learned it slowly, but, and this may sound bad, but virginity is not that serious. Like it is serious,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I'm realizing that it's not the end all be all
Mm-hmm.
of my
Right.
life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I thought for so long. Like this is the most important thing, but it's just not.
Yeah. Like the way that they talked about it was like, okay, you could kill somebody, but if you are not a virgin, that's worse, you know?
Yeah. And like I don't say that to be like, go have sex, go do whatever you want. But it's like I don't spend my days thinking about what if I slip up, you know?
Right.
Yeah. Also, like the way that it was talked about when we were younger was it was like our identity. It was like who made us
Yeah.
what we were. And so if we were virgin, like, oh, they're pure, like good on them. And but I'm just like, what does that say to the people that have had sex before? And they like, what if they like regret it and they wish they could take it back? But now you're just saying like you're praising people who are virgins. What does that say? Like, what are you doing to those people that aren't? I'm just like, if you're making
Yeah.
part of my identity like, oh, good on you, you're pure. I don't, I don't want that identity put on somebody who like has had sex. You know?
Yeah.
And it's
Right.
like, what does that say about them? And also, like, our identity isn't about, like, our sexuality or our, like, if we've had, like, sex or whatever. And it's, like, not our gender or anything. It's, like, our identity is, like, we are children of God,
Yeah.
you know? And I feel like maybe we should be, like, talking about that more. It's just, like, I don't know. Just, I don't like the whole, like, identity be put on, like, what you do and what you've done. It's just who you are and, like, who you belong to, you know?
Not because of who I am, but because of what you've done. What a banger.
Jesus, kick your mic.
I had so much pride in my identity as a virgin. What's so funny, this is a lot of information, and I don't think I have any shame telling it, but I don't think. Maybe later I will. But I did like everything but the actual act. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
but I still was like, but I'm still a virgin. Doesn't
Right.
matter at all. Like I was doing all this other crap with boys and giving my heart and my body away, whatever. But I was like, but I'm still a virgin. But then I remember when I actually lost that, I was like, oh crap. What am I now? Who am I now?
Mm.
You
Yeah.
know? Like what I don't understand. Like I had like kind of an identity crisis because I was like, I have to change my entire relationship with Jesus now. When it should have never
Yeah.
been like that in the first place.
That's what I'm saying. It's just like when you put so much focus on like who you are as a person and your self-worth on based on if you're a virgin or not, when that crap happens, she went into a freaking identity crisis when she shouldn't have. She shouldn't have
Yep.
gone through that.
And I remember on my like when we got married, Quince and I got married, um people told me how proud they were of me because they didn't know that I wasn't. And there was like a lot of shame that I was like,
Mm.
oh man, like if they only knew, then they probably wouldn't be proud of me. This wouldn't be a special, amazing thing to them if they knew, you know?
Yeah. Also, what I'm not a fan of is people making comments when a young lady is getting married, and they know stuff about her, and they're like, "Oh, she shouldn't be wearing that white." I'm just like, dude, shut the crap
Yeah,
up.
that's ridiculous.
I'm just like, she is getting married. Let that woman wear white, okay?
What's the scripture that we just bring up every podcast? Mind your own business. Live a simple life. Mind your own business.
Yeah.
Work with your hands.
I'm about to just start carrying bags of sand so I could just pour it on the ground and draw a line in the sand. I'm just like,
Yeah.
cast the first stone, you hussy. I'm just kidding.
Oh my gosh. Well, we're already at an hour. So,
Holy cow.
yeah. By the way, this is part 1 of the purity culture on Valentine's Day. We're pulling a youth group thing on Valentine's Day. We're going to talk about it again with a different guest. But because there's just so much to say. But I'm so glad that we could have you on, Hannah. Is there anything else that you wanted to add?
I don't think so. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I love talking to y'all in general, so why not record?
Any names you want to drop to tell them to suck it?
I would love to.
I'm just kidding. Satan, you can suck it. Thank you.
Hannah's
Exactly.
practicing holiness right now, and she's gonna keep her mouth. Yeah, we definitely have to have you back on because this is the first time we've done a long distance one, and honestly, before an hour before we called you, we didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
So now that we know how to do it, we're gonna have to have you back on to talk about. Maybe we'll just have you back on and just tell a bunch of random, ridiculous stories.
Honestly, we have plenty.
Right? Yeah.
So many stories.
Oh my gosh. A lot
Next
of them.
time I'll just come in person.
Yeah. For sure. We'd love that. Yeah. Well, in summarization, do better, church.
Exactly. Do better.
Do better. Sincerely, traumatized girls from youth group.
We should get Guy on here and get his perspective.
Yeah. He probably was just like, yeah, they told me not to do it.
That was it.
And that's the end of that. I did it, but they told me not to.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming, Hannah.
Of
Can't
course.
wait to have you again.
Thank you for answering our FaceTime call.
Yes, of course.
All right, guys, remember, this is what happens
when church hits the fan.